Okay, here's our first try at voicing over a PowerPoint. So here we go. You will see everything that I do on the screen. So if I change to a marker up here, you will see that. If I have to erase something, you will see that too. All right, here we go. Obviously, this is your metric notes, so please make sure you have that paper out that you got today during 8th period. Fill in as you need to. Here's our friend Beaker, and this would be Bunsen, Bunsen burner. All right, first stop is the map. You've seen this map before on the Bill Nye video. We've got most of the world using metrics except for us. Okay, this is not another country up here, part of the United States. There's Alaska. We have Liberia down here in Africa, and we've got Burma. So again, everybody else is using metric except for us. The reason you're learning about metrics, we mentioned this already as well, is because all the equipment that you're going to be using has metric measurements on it. So here you've got your Erlenmeyer flask, your beaker and thermometer, and then the only one missing from this photo that I couldn't find would be your, let's see, I'll do my best, graduated. That's not a very good picture. My best graduated cylinder, and of course it's going to have your metric measurements on here as well, and this one will be in milliliters. Alright, there are some pros and cons to the metric system. The pros for us moving to metrics would be that most countries do use it, and so it wouldn't be such a big deal communicating with them or buying or selling. It is a lot easier to use, as I'm going to show you that today, and of course you know that it's based on the number 10. The problems with excuse me, with moving to metrics is that it would be very, very expensive, extremely expensive, um, to change everything that would need to be changed in order for uh, us to use the metric system. Some examples: any sign that's got miles on it, all ingredients, any tags that have the standard system, and then of course the football fields. You go in yards, we would have to change that to metrics. All right. We mentioned this today. The history of measurement is that people used to use objects to measure objects with their body parts, and mostly this would be the kings that were setting these standards. Whoever was in power would, their foot or their forearm or the circumference of their head would be what everyone would use. And then unfortunately, when one king would die, the next king would come in, and so it was constantly changing. And you practice this measuring your desks and your papers with your hands and your fingers yesterday. The obvious thing that's wrong with this method is that people's body parts are different sizes. And so if you would go to buy some food, like rice from the market, one handful would be 1 cent, but then you go to another stop and someone's bigger hand, you'd be paying the same price and getting more. And so it caused a lot of fights. And so of course they decided that something needed to be set up as a standard. And all this means is that standard. It's the same for everybody. And the metric system was actually created in 1794 by the French. So they were the first to use it. All right, here's the stuff that you need to start remembering. Is that if something is bigger than a meter, and I should put here or liter or a gram, we start with kilo. It is the biggest. It is the biggest. It's 1,000-meter sticks to make 1 kilometer. Again, whenever I say meter, you could also switch this to liter or gram. It takes 1,000 liters to make a kiloliter, or 1,000 grams to make a kilogram. Next is hecto. I remember the H is hecto and hundred. It takes 100-meter sticks to make 1 hectometer, or 100 liters, or 100 grams to make a hectogram. Deca means 10. just like the word decade has 10 years. It takes 10 meter sticks to make 1 decameter, or 10 liters to make a decaliter, etc. Now, what if it's smaller than a meter stick? You can see all three of these if you had a meter stick sitting in front of you. This is the one you don't hear about very often. It's not used. But a decimeter is if you divide that meter stick into 10 equal parts. That's a decimeter. It's about the distance of your thumb to your middle finger if you hold it out. If you divide that meter stick into 100 pieces, you have a centi, like a centipede has 100 legs, or it is 100 pennies in a dollar. And of course, the smallest one that we are going to use is milli. Again, divide that meter stick into 1,000 equal pieces, and that's how big a millimeter is. Okay, so one way to remember it, because on your next quiz, you do have to know which prefix is the biggest and which is the smallest, and you need to know them in order. Here's one way to remember that, and it's King Henry drinks dark chocolate milk. So the beginning of each word stands for kilo, hecto, deca, deci, centi, and milli. And notice we have two D's, and so since deca is larger than a meter stick, we give that the capital D. And I put this here just so you understand that this is not in the saying. We kind of assume that you're going to know that meter, liter, and gram fall in the middle. And I always put these together because it depends on what you're talking about. If we're talking about a meter, we're doing length. If I'm talking about a liter, that means you're measuring volume. And a gram means you are measuring mass. So King Henry drinks dark chocolate milk. This here, this line, we just call this your base. Your base is the meter, the liter, and the gram. Another way to remember it, if you want something different, is we've also done kids have died. Let's see. Excuse me. Let me erase that. It sounds kind of dreary, but this is how a lot of people remember it. Kids have dropped dead, lowercase d, converting metrics. So either one of those would work really well for you to remember for your next quiz. All right, standard versus metric. Standard, or the English system, or sometimes it's called the American system, what you currently use. All right, this is what you currently use. No more are you allowed to use these words in our room because we don't have any equipment that's got any of these measurements on it. So you have to be really careful because the rulers that you buy for school, most of them have, let's see, most of them have your inches on one side on the top, and some of them have the centimeters and millimeters on the bottom. So you have to be really careful to make sure you're using the right side, and you have to make sure that all your numbers now, so whenever you write numbers, we're not going to see inches. So it's going to be a really hard habit for a lot of you to break. All right, the materials that you're going to need, of course, length. You're going to need a meter stick. If you are planning on measuring volume, you will need graduated cylinders and beakers. So again, volume, most of the time we're going to be doing liquids. And then to find mass, you'll need a balance. And temperature, we'll need to just make sure you have a thermometer that has this symbol on it, the C for Celsius. All right, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good news, you don't have to use a calculator anymore to convert measurements. So if I asked you how many, let's see, how many inches were in 536 miles, you would have to multiply this by 12 because there's 12 inches in a foot. Okay, and I would need a calculator. So for metrics, you don't need to do this stuff anymore. The bad news is that you do need to memorize that chart. So again, King Henry died drinking chocolate milk, dark chocolate milk. And then the ugly, that's the ugly. I thought that was an ugly monster. All right, let's do a little practice. I'm going to skip that one to start with. What I'd like you to do is kind of pause me, I guess, and just take a minute and practice writing these abbreviations for each metric unit. So what you don't, I'm never going to say, okay, write out 6 kilometers, and I will never ask you to write it this way. That's too much writing. You don't have to write out the whole word. But what you do need to know, this one's kilogram, so I'm going to abbreviate it kg. I want you to go ahead and pause, and I'm going to give you a couple minutes. Come back when you press play. I will go through these answers with you. So hit pause and answer 1 through 9 somewhere on your paper. Once you've pressed play again, hopefully you're back and you tried these. Your abbreviation for milliliter is this, kilometer. So you're basically just taking the first letter of each prefix. Now this one's tricky, meter. You need to make this one a capital M because you don't want to get it confused with millimeter. If it's just one M, some worksheets will just show it as a lowercase m. If it's just one single M, it's meter. To be millimeter, it's got to have 2 M's. So like this one, number 5, would be millimeter. You have centimeter, gram by itself, liter by itself, and milligram. All right, so there's some abbreviations. And we're going to come back to these conversions here in a minute. This next part is a little extra. You actually are not going to be asked to do this on your quiz. We used to. After last year, I'm just going to write base here. After last year, they decided that 6th graders did not have to know how to do this, but I'm going to tell you about it anyway, because eventually you'll have to once you get to the high school. And if you want to try these and not get extra credit, but maybe bring in some work and show me understand it, I'll give out some badges. But basically, how I said you don't have to use a calculator anymore. If you have 345 centimeters and you want to know how many millimeters that is, how many millimeters. So we're not sure how many millimeters that is. Here's how you do these conversions. The first number is centi. So I start up here. I'm going to change colors so you can see this. You always put your finger or your pencil at the original problem, which is, again, 345 centimeters. So I start at centi. The answer wants to know how many millis. So in my little chart, I have moved one spot to the right. And so all I do is move my decimal place. So 345, it always is here. One spot to the right. And so my final, fill in my 0, my final answer is 3,450 millimeters. Still sounds confusing, I'm sure, to some of you. But right now, 345, we call this a naked number. If there's no decimal in the number, you always put it at the end. That's where the decimal would be if 345 had a decimal. Even the number 8, naked number. Since there's no decimal, you now know it always goes behind it or at the end. Because let's go with number 8 again. The number 8, you can't put the decimal here in the front because this means 0.8 or 8/10. And so it has to go in the back. Let's do another one. That's not a very big eraser. Let's do this one. There we go. Let's try another one of these. Okay. Let's go back. Let's start with a kilometer. So I have 17.3 kilometers, and I want to know how many meters that is. All right, again, meters right here at your base. So again, you put your finger on the chart with where you start. I gave you kilometers, so I start here, and I want my answer in meters. So I just have to count over in my chart. So to get from kilometer to meter, I move 1, 2, 3 spots to the right. And so my answer, I move my decimal. I'm going to change colors. I move my decimal 3 spots to the right. 1, 2, 3. I fill in my zeros. And so my final answer is 17,300 meters. So 17.3 kilometers is the same as there are 17,300 meters in 1 kilometer. And you can go the other way. What if you wanted to go from millimeter to centimeter? So I have 66 millimeters, and I want to know how many centimeters that is. Well, from milli, start with milli, to centi is 1 spot to the left, and so I move my decimal spot 1 spot to the left. Decimal on a naked numbers on the end, 1 spot to the left. So my answer is 6.6. These two numbers mean the same distance. They're the same distance. If you don't believe me, get on your ruler in your agenda and check it out. 6.6 centimeters. If you counted all the millimeters, you would have 66 of them. They are the same number. In fact, I think I must have missed a question somewhere. I think on your white sheet it said, let me go back here, it said something about opening your agenda. I don't see it anywhere. Alright, so let's do that. There's a question still left on your white note sheet. I'll go ahead and erase this. But it says to go ahead and check out your agenda. On the back cover of your agenda, you've got the ruler. There's a metric ruler on the inside cover, or on the inside of it, and a standard ruler on the outside. I just want you to take a look and tell me which measurement is bigger, an inch or a centimeter, and go ahead and add that to your paper. Now those of you that, get our pen back, those of you that this made sense where I was jumping around, so 120 centimeters is how many kilometers, and moving your desk, so centi to kilo, I go 1, don't forget your base is here, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the left, and so I move my decimal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the left, which makes my final answer like this. So this is not required, but if you understand this part, go ahead back to this page and try a couple of these. Here they are. So you've got number 10 up here. Here's 11. Sorry, they're so jumbled up. Here's number 15. Just try 2 or 3 of them and see if you get any right answers. You can always go back and double check. But as far as your notes, I am done. In fact, I was probably done about 3 minutes ago. I hope you got everything filled in, and we will review this together on Friday.